Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of Quran for Ramadan. In this series, as you all know, we have selected verses of the Quran which actually depict how we can be inspired and motivated into becoming better human beings and better individuals. And the reason being that normally we think that our worship rituals are an end in themselves, and we do not relate these worship rituals to our moral lives. So whether it's the fast, whether it's the prayer or the Hajj, Umrah or animal sacrifice, all these worship rituals, they are meant to. So sorry for this disconnectivity. There was something wrong with our connections. Now, hopefully, it should be okay. So we're going to start off with our today's passage, and we'll have some extended time as well to make up for the lost time. So the passage that we are going to study today is now being displayed before you. This is actually a passage from Surah Mu'minun, which is the 23rd Surah of the Quran, and the verses are from 57 to 62. Let me just read the text and translation first. إن الذين هم من خشية ربهم مشفقون والذين هم بآيات ربهم يؤمنون والذين هم بربهم لا يشركون والذين يؤتون ما آتوا وقلوبهم وجلة أنهم إلى ربهم راجعون أولئك يسارعون في الخيرات وهم لها سابقون ولا نكلف نفسا إلا وسعها ولدينا كتاب ينطق بالحق وهم لا يظلمون. However, those who keep fearing the might of their Lord and who believe in the revelations of their Lord, and those who do not associate partners with their Lord, and those who, when give something for his cause, give with their hearts trembling, with the thought that they have to return to their Lord. It is they who are taking lead in good works, and they shall certainly acquire them. In reality, we do not burden a soul beyond its capacity, and we have a book which shall accurately disclose what they had been doing in the world, and not the slightest injustice shall they suffer. So, viewers, you can see that this is a very, very compelling set of verses in which our relationship with the Almighty is shown and depicted. That we, as individuals who are supposed to be righteous and who are supposed to be God conscious, we are, the way we have been depicted, or true believers have been depicted, in fact, in this set of verses, is starting off with the first thing is that those who keep fearing the might of their Lord. Of course, fearing the might of their Lord, it doesn't sound maybe too well to the modern ear, but to be honest, to be trembling for the might of God, or to be thinking that He is someone who's going to take account of us, is something that should not be of any cause of concern, in the sense that he is not someone who is after punishing us or who is bent upon punishing us. He is someone who would always like to forgive people and make them enter into his paradise, is the eternal abode. So that is why the Quran has said on other occasions that the Almighty has created this world not to punish people, but as a mercy, and He would like to admit all mankind into heaven. So, having this background in mind, when we read these verses, that people who tremble with his from his might, there's a context to these verses, and that is that the idolaters would often think that that this world is something. If once it finishes, or once it just disintegrates, it cannot come into being, and they would often think that this world is all that there is, and if ever there's going to be any hereafter, then their own deities will save them. So, with this in mind, the Quran has actually said here that you have to understand that believers are those who tremble with the fact that they are going to be, they're going to think in this way, and hence regard themselves that yes, come what may, they'll be just have a smooth sailing before their Lord. So that is not going to be the case. Believers are such that when they face their Lord, and when they think of their Lord, they always think of His might, and that might is something that you have to always take into account, that He is not going to let people who are compulsively arrogant, people who are extremely disobedient. He is not going to let them go astray. So this might is basically meant for people who are making hay in this world, and they are being told that don't forget that there is going to be a time in which you shall be held accountable. So I was just talking to you regarding the passage that we are discussing, that as far as fearing the might of God is concerned, that has a very specific context, and hence it should not cause undue alarm in our hearts. And then the next thing which is mentioned here is something that we are all accustomed to. The Quran says, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِمْ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِمْ يُؤْمِنُونَ, and who believe in the revelations of their Lord. Now, of course, these revelations, they relate to the Quran. So the fact that there are people who believe in the revelations of God, this of course is something that we have to understand, that this is not a blind belief what the Quran is talking about, because at other instances we are told that that human beings or believers are those who are always, believing because of the fact that the revelations of God, they speak to their mind, and they have sound reasons and arguments behind them. It's not that the Almighty is imposing something without making us understand. So remember, this belief which the Quran talks about is always something which is based on sound arguments. And it is something that we all relish and cherish once we are able to understand and fully comprehend it. So, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِرَبِّهِمْ لَا يُشْرِكُونَ, they are those who do not associate partners with God. Again, this is a very important area, because remember, two-thirds of the Quran has been revealed regarding the idolaters. We know that it's almost like 66% of the Quran deals with polytheism, deals with shirk and idolatry, because this was how the Prophet's own nation was. They believed in partners, they associate partners with God. And the Almighty has said that this is the biggest lie that they can impute on Him, because how would they know that He has partners unless He Himself was able to divulge this information? And since He has not done so, so they are just imputing a lie on Him. And that is why people who start reading the Quran, they must understand that if the Quran is dealing with polytheism and idolatry in such a copious way or in such a vast scale, then it is because the addresses that are right in front of the Quran, as I said, two-thirds of the Quran relates to the idolaters. So people of the Abrahamic tradition, especially people who have accepted faith from the people of the book, and people, of course, who have the background of the Abrahamic tradition, they fail to see why is polytheism mentioned so frequently in the Quran. So we have to understand that this frequency is because of the addressees that who were in place right in front of the Prophet at that time, and hence they had to be told repeatedly that you have no proof of associating partners with God, and if you are doing so and doing so deliberately, then you are destined to be doomed in the hereafter. And then it is said, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْتُونَ مَا آتَوْا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ وَجِلَةٌ أَنَّهُمْ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ رَاجِعُونَ, which means that it is they who are actually spending. When they give something for His cause, they give their hearts, with their hearts trembling, with the thought that they have to return to their Lord. Again, this is the fact that we have to understand, that when we spend for the cause of God, when we spend for the projects and things that relate to God, we have to spend it in a way that it fulfills a certain criteria. For example, it should not be a means of show off. It should not be in any way an instance in which we express our favor to people to whom we have done this good deed. So when they spend with their hearts trembling, that they have to return to God, who is going to take account of them and hold them accountable, that if they spent and they did not follow that proper decorum and criteria, then that spending is not going to be of any weight before the Almighty. So that is why this is mentioned as a warning. The next thing which is mentioned is that أُولَٰئِكَ يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ وَهُمْ لَهَا سَابِقُونَ, which means it is they who are taking lead in good works, and they shall certainly acquire them. So you can clearly see, dear viewers, one of the things that we have often mentioned, you see there are common words in Arabic language and in languages like Urdu and Turkish and Hindi, in which we have some words of Arabic as well. So it's not always the case that the same word has the same meaning. Just here is a perfect example. Yusari'una fil khairat. In Arabic, khairat means all good deeds. But we know in Urdu and certain other languages, the word khairat actually means charity or sadaqah. So we have to understand that this is a very specific area, that not always do the words that we encounter in different languages, but the word is the same, it should have the same meaning. So yusari'una fil khairat would mean that they take lead in doing good deeds. وَهُمْ لَهَا سَابِقُونَ. Of course, that is something that they always do. So they don't wait for the opportunity to come to them to spend for the cause of God. They go and find that opportunity. They see and look at, have a lookout that wherever they can be of use, wherever the funds that they have collected, wherever they can make themselves useful, they try to create that opportunity, they try to find that opportunity. And this is the proactive approach. Don't wait for the opportunity to knock at your doors. You go and find instances and places, because there are plenty of instances and plenty of places which need our attention. And that is why it is said that these are the people who take lead. They don't sit back and relax and wait for people to come to them. They find out where these people are. وَلَا نُكَلِّفُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا وَلَدَيْنَا كِتَابٌ يَنْطِقُ بِالْحَقِّ, which means that we do not burden a person beyond his capacity. And we have a book which shall accurately disclose what they have been doing in this world. So that again is something that we have to understand, that the Sharia that God has given us, the directives that God has given us, they are in no way something which are beyond us. We should not think that any of God's directive is beyond our capacity, beyond something that we cannot do. So you must have often heard of this sentence that our religion is based on human nature. So human nature is so close to the Sharia or vice versa that you'll find a perfect affinity between them. God will not burden you with directives that are beyond you and beyond us, unless of course there's an exception that when he out of his own will would like some penalty to be imposed on people, then yes, that does happen at times, that the burden becomes much more. But this is an exceptional case. In normal circumstances, the Sharia, the directive, the religion that has been given to us is something that we can easily understand and execute at the same time. And then lastly, it is mentioned that God has a book which is going to actually accurately narrate the account of people, and not the slightest injustice shall they suffer. So remember that everything that we do in this world is going to be held before us or against us or for us. And so we must be very careful, because this accountability is the final frontier. Everything is going to disappear, and this final frontier is the one after which we will be either doomed forever or maybe rewarded forever. So this accountability is something that we must always keep in mind. And just to give you this reminder that this month that we are passing through is also primarily a month of accountability. It's a month of self-accountability. Yeah, we must look into ourselves. We must peep into our own personal undertakings and what we are doing in this world, and analyze if we are a good brother or a good sister or a good father or a good sibling. So all these relations that we have, the various capacities that we have, this is a month of soul searching, in which we must find out and we must assess for ourselves if we are behaving in an optimum way in all these relationships. So with this, we come to an end to this interrupted session, and we now can have an extended Q&A session as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleem, and thank you to all the participants for being so patient. They were so kind and they waited. If you have any questions, please raise your hands at this time so I can call upon you. I do not see any raised hands right now, but I am... let me see. Okay, Imran Khan, please unmute your mic and ask your question. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Sir, my question pertains to shirk and kufr. Shirk तो हमें बड़ा क्लियर है कि अल्लाह की ज़ात सिफ़ात में किसी को शरीक ठहराना. कुफर के बारे में मेरा सवाल है कि क्या एक मुसलमान भी कुफर में फॉल कर सकता है कि वो अगर अल्लाह ताला की नेमतों की नाशुक्री करता है, या अल्लाह की किसी आयत को या यौम आखिरत को हम झूठ को देखते हैं ना लोगों को जो नहीं मानते, तो क्या हम काफिर की कैटेगरी में फॉल करेंगे या नहीं? इन दोनों को जरा थोड़ा सा डिफाइन. थैंक यू.
देखें, पहली बात तो ये कि कुफर के दो मतलब होते हैं, एक इनकार करना है और एक नाशुक्री करना है. तो जो अल्लाह ताला के कुरान मजीद में और किताबुल्लाह के अलावा अरबी ज़बान में लफ्ज़ कफरा का जो इस्तेमाल है दोनों मफ़ाहीम में होता है कि अगर आप नाशुक्रे हों, अगर आप अनग्रेटफुल हों, उसके लिए भी कफरा का वर्ड इस्तेमाल होता है, और अगर आप इनकार करें तो उसका भी होता है. तो अगर आप नाशुक्री के मफहूम में बोल रहे हैं तो ज़ाहिर है हमसे कभी कभी, बल्कि बाज़ दफ़ा ज़्यादा अक्सर हमसे नाशुक्री हो जाती है अल्लाह ताला की, तो वो एक और चीज़ है. लेकिन जिस चीज़ को आप काफिर कहते हैं, और कुरान मजीद में काफिर का लफ्ज़ आपको मालूम है आया है, तो उसका आमतौर से मतलब ये होता है, जहाँ पे आप समझें कि काफिर का जो लफ्ज़ है वो इस कॉन्टेक्स्ट पे मेंशन्ड है कि अल्लाह ताला सख्ती से उसके बारे में सजा की बात कर रहे हैं या सरजनिश कर रहे हैं. वहां पे काफिर का मतलब ये होता है जिसने हक को जानते बूझते इसका इनकार किया, जिस चीज को उसने सच्चाई समझा और एक्सेप्ट किया, लेकिन उसने कहा मैंने नहीं मानना, आउट ऑफ एरोगेंस या आउट ऑफ पर्सनल इंटरेस्ट वगैरह. तो वो काफिर जो हैं वो बिल्कुल एक अलग कैटेगरी है, और ये वो लोग हैं कि जो जानते बूझते इनकार करते हैं। लेकिन इससे हट के जो कफरा का वर्ब है, जैसे मैंने कहा, वो महज सादा इनकार के मफहूम में भी आ जाता है और नाशुक्री के मफहूम में भी आ जाता है।
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Akram Bhatti sir, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Ma'am, my question is a very small one, but related to Ramadan, not related to this subject. Can I ask?
Yeah, please go ahead. Ask your question.
Sir, Assalamu alaikum. My question is about itikaf. Can a male sit for itikaf at home instead of going to masjid because of some reason, health reason?
Well, you see, the essence of itikaf is actually to sit in the mosque in seclusion. That is the ideal form, and that is the proper way. But for any compulsion, if you have no other means, maybe, or maybe there's some liability that you have to actually take care of, or there could be any reason. So that is the second best option, that you choose a secluded place in your house and then station yourself in that place. But remember, the ideal way and the proper way is to sit in the mosque, both for men and for women.
For health reason. For health reason.
Yes, that is understandable. If for health reasons you're not able to go to the mosque, then yes, okay, that's fine, and you can do so in your own home.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Ammar Rasool, अपना सवाल कर लीजिए आप.
जी, अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर साहब. Dr. Saab, I wanted to ask specifically about this trembling aspect of these verses where God is saying that, I should, well, I don't remember the exact words, but yes, I mean, how we should be trembling out of his awe. And sometimes I feel that modern Muslim scholars like yourself become very defensive when such verses which talk about, this awesomeness and this, immense power and fear of God, or that he's going to be very harsh and he's going to be, the hereafter is going to be difficult on some group of people. So the modern scholars sometimes become very defensive so as to, at that point in time, try and speak about, how God is Rahman and Raheem as well. It seems as if because, the modern listener is living in a largely Christian world or Christian ethos, one feels that they have to defend the Quranic God in some way.
Well, I would not go with this. I think if this is the case that you get the impression, then that's not the right impression, at least not something that should be done. We should neither be offensive nor be defensive, but try to explain the Quran the way it is. So, yes, at times what happens is that you become, you get influenced by the tide of your time and by the general zeitgeist of the time. That does happen, but I think that is what every scholar should keep on checking upon himself, that he must not be led away by any external influence and should try to explain the Quran from within the Quran. So, for example, today we discussed this verse which says, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْتُونَ مَا آتَوْا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ وَجِلَةٌ, which means that they whenever they give for the cause of God, they give with their hearts trembling. And then it is said, "Annahum ila rabbihim rajiun," that they have to return to God. So this trembling of the hearts actually just refers to the fact that your giving should not be in a sense that you think that this charity, once you give it, is going to earn you God's blessings and you can do whatever you like after that. Similarly, it should not be a cause of show off. Similarly, it should not be something that you should do to just impose yourself on other people who might be poor. So you see, this is just letting us know that when they are giving something, they give this with a very humble heart, with a trembling heart, in the sense that it's something that they have the opportunity to do. God could have made them poor. God could have made them in a sense that they would not have anything to spend in charity. But when they do so, they become so humble and their hearts tremble at this sense that they are doing their duty. It's not something that they are doing as a favor. It's like something that they're doing as their duty, with the trembling of their hearts, with the humility of their souls. So that is precisely what the Quran is trying to tell us here.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Salman Aziz, अपना सवाल कर लीजिए आप.
सर, अमूमन कुरान में और जगहों पे ये है कि जैसे जितने मोमिनीन हैं या ईमान वाले हैं, वो खौफ और तमा से पुकारते हैं अल्लाह ताला को. तो यहाँ पे थोड़ा खौफ का एलिमेंट ज्यादा लग रहा है. तमा का एलिमेंट जो ज़ाहिर है कि थोड़ा सा इंसान को उम्मीद भी होती है कि हमारे कुछ चीज जो है, जब ज़कात दे रहे हैं, खैरात कर रहे हैं, वो कुछ उसका कुछ अच्छा रिजल्ट भी आएगा। तो यहाँ पे खौफ का एलिमेंट थोड़ा ज्यादा
वी
प्रेडोमिनेंट
हैव टू
लग रहा है। तो
अंडरस्टैंड,
काइंडली
ये देखें,
इसको
ये
थोड़ा
ध्यान में
एक्सप्लेन
रखना
करें।
चाहिए कि कुरान मजीद जो है, आई मीन, वो एक खास से आपको सबाक में एक चीज को मेंशन कर रहा है। ये जिस सूरा को हम पढ़ रहे हैं, सूरह मोमिनून, उसके पस मंजर में जाहिर है जिस थीम के लिहाज से आप चल रहे होते हैं, तो वहां पे वार्निंग का जो एलिमेंट है वो ज्यादा है। इसी वजह से आप देखिए कि इन्फाक हो या कोई भी ऐसी चीज हो, उसके बारे में अगर आपने कोई राय कायम करनी हो, तो सारी जो आयतें हैं उस मौजू की, उनको सामने रखेंगे तो एक कंप्लीट पिक्चर आएगी। तो जैसे आपने खुद कहा कि अल्लज़ीना यदऊना रब्बहुम खौफन व तमाम मिम्मा रज़क़नाहुम युनफिकून, और जगहों पे ये आ गया है खौफ और तमा दोनों। खौफ का मतलब ये है कि भाई कहीं ऐसे ना हो कि मेरे अंदर से कोई कमी हो जाए, और तमा या लालच का मतलब ये है कि वो होपफुल रहते हैं कि हाँ, जो मैंने किया है उम्मीद है कि मुझे ये सही जगह पे ले जाएगा, मैंने इस पे कोई रियाकारी नहीं की। तो ये खौफ और तमा दोनों चीजें और जगहों पर मेंशन्ड है। तो ये जहन में रखें कि कुरान मजीद हर जगह एग्जॉस्टिव लिस्ट बयान नहीं कर रहा होता। वो उस सूरा के कॉन्टेक्स्ट के लिहाज से या सूरा की जो थीम है उसके लिहाज से किसी ऐसी चीज को हाईलाइट करेगा जो उस सूरा से मुताबिकत रखती हो। अब जहां मिसाल के तौर पे सूरह मोमिनून का जहां पे साको सबाक है, वहां पीछे से जो सिलसिला कलाम गालिबन चला आ रहा है, वहां पे वार्निंग का एलिमेंट ज्यादा है। इस वजह से आप देखिए उस चीज को नुमाया किया गया। तो किसी एक मकाम से आप कोई ऐसी नतीजा ना निकाल लीजिए कि जिससे महसूस हो कि जैसे एक बात इनकम्प्लीट है। नहीं, कुरान मजीद के अंदर वो कंप्लीटनेस आपने अगर देखनी है तो फिर उस मौजू की सारी आयत को एक जगह पे लिखिएगा, फिर आपके सामने वो आ जाएगी बात।
थैंक यू डॉक्टर सलीम। समीना नईम, अपना सवाल कर लीजिए आप।
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. There is a mention that Allah never burdens a person beyond his or her capacity. So this burdening is purely in the sense of the religion.
Correct. Correct. I mean, wherever you'll find this verse, La lukarne for nafsan illa wus'aha, it actually tells us that, you see, that there is a background to this. Let me explain that. And that is the previous people of the book, the Jews, they had made that Sharia a very burdensome thing on them because of their constant bickering and constant questioning and constant debate with their prophets. They would not be satisfied with the directive, and they would keep trying to ask more and more questions and have the answer pinpointed, and this would actually narrow down the scope of that Sharia. And then the Quran has also said that they were given certain directives, zalika bi baghihim, because of their rebelliousness, that certain things were imposed which were generally lawful, but to them they were made unlawful because of their rebelliousness. So that burdensome nature of the Sharia is in the background when the Quran was being revealed. And about the Prophet, it has also been mentioned in the Torah that when he will come, he will actually relieve people from these burdens and these shackles and these fetters and these yokes that they have tied around their necks because of their own attitude and because of a punishment from God. So this is the background. So every time this theme comes up, so the Almighty reminds us that the previous nations, they were burdened with the Sharia that was beyond them because of their own questioning and because of their own rebelliousness. But now, once this last prophet has come, he has restored the Sharia back to its original form, which is very easy to actually follow. This is the background. That is why the Quran has said at 5 or 6 places that the Sharia we have given to you is not the Sharia that the Jews were given because of their rebelliousness. It's a Sharia that you can easily follow. And of course, there is this warning concealed in it as well, that if you follow the ways of the Jews, the way they burden themselves with the Sharia, you will end up with the same thing. And to be honest, let me tell you this, my own experience, that the way our jurists have compiled the Sharia, in the sense that they have made it so strong, so narrow and so restricted and so, allow me to use a slightly harsh word. It's so, I would say, it doesn't make sense at times that it actually becomes a burden. So you see, this is a very important area of the Quran. It repeatedly tells us that whatever it gives us, whatever directive it tells us, is not something that's going to be beyond you. It's something that's going to be the call of your own heart, something that you feel from inside that this belongs to us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleem, for that wonderful explanation. Ruhi Rasool, please अपना सवाल कर लीजिए.
Sir, in this passage, we have read about believers in ayat of Quran. You said that it's not a blind belief, but the revelations speak to our mind. How do these revelations speak to our mind?
I think I've explained that the way that they speak to us is that they do not. The Quran does not impose itself without actually arguing in favor of a case that it wants to make. For example, if it wants us to believe in the hereafter, it's not a blind belief. It will always furnish arguments in favor of the hereafter. Similarly, if he wants us to believe that the Quran is a divine book, then again the divinity of the book is something which the Quran itself will guide us that how it is a divine book, why should we believe that it's a divine book, what are the reasons and what are the arguments and the proofs that make it a divine book. So the Quran is not a dogma. It's not something that's just furnished and you have to blindly follow it. So the Quran actually makes us understand. It gives us the wisdom behind every directive it gives. And that is precisely what is meant here.
I'll come back to Sara Siddiqa. अपना सवाल कर लीजिए आप.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Bhai, my question is about the evil eye. How, or is it mentioned? And if it's mentioned, how is it mentioned?
So the Quran does not mention the evil eye. There is a hadith which mentions the evil eye. And remember, this is more of a cultural happening that the Prophet just gave sanction to and said, yes, that evil eye does happen and it does take place. So he was just giving us this picture that at times things that you find around you, they do happen, and there's no reason to deny them. As far as this phenomena itself is concerned, as far as I have researched into it, I find it to be a parapsychological phenomena, which means that at times physical things have a psychological effect. So this is like when you, for example, when someone praises you, you start blushing, you turn red in the face, isn't it? When you get angry, you to have that redness in your face. Similarly, you have goosebumps when you at times listen to something. So what happens is that certain physical things have a psychological impact on you. It seems to me, I cannot say it with 100% surety. It seems to me that an evil eye is also something of a similar nature, in which people who have a weak psyche, so when other people look at that person with a yearning, with a desirous look, then it has a psychological impact. It's just a psychological impact, that's all. And that psychological impact makes a person feel a little low, or feel a little, I would say, as if something has happened. You don't feel comfortable, you feel a certain amount of discomfort. So I would say that's more of a psychological feeling. And the antidote, again, is not something that you should ask Islam or religion, because it's a psychological thing, and it's bound to go away if you just wait patiently. Or, for example, if you think that there is something that is not you're not feeling comfortable, then you can always offer various supplications which the Prophet has taught us regarding good health, regarding restoring our health, because it's a form of ill health. So I think it has to be treated like a disease, maybe, or maybe an ailment. And that ailment, of course, is a psychological ailment, and because it does not have any medicine, so to speak, in the way that we use medicine. So if anything has to be done, it should be like praying to God, that God, please rid me of whatever the situation I'm suffering. And that is all.
I have a chat question, Dr. Saleem. Do you get ajr, or are you rewarded for bearing with difficulty?
I could not get the question.
Do you get ajr, or are you rewarded for bearing with difficulty?
Oh, okay. So this is something which is mentioned in the Quran and in our hadith also, that if you pass through trying circumstances, if you pass through difficult circumstances, and you show patience, perseverance, are steadfast, thank God for His blessings, and wait for those bad moments to go away, then God is going to reward you because of that patience. So that is how our sins are also at times brushed away, as the Quran has said, that when you pass through trying circumstances, and if you show the right behavior, then that's going to be a rewarding thing for you, because that's a trial that you were undergoing, and you adopted the right attitude in that trial.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Saleem. Sarah, आप अपना सवाल कर लीजिए.
Assalamu alaikum. I was using my voice phone, Sarah. Sorry for that.
Okay, that's okay.
There, Dr. Assalamu alaikum. My question is about this charity, the word of charity, which जो आयत में mention किया आपने, trembling that come upon. क्या charity is just the helping with mal, helping with your money, or is covered everything, like people doing in kind, people putting their efforts in educating other people, or could be anything?
You see, charity is, if you use the word charity, which means like infaq or something, so that relates to money. But when you use the word khairat in Arabic, so the word khairat means all good deeds, all things that are done in a goodly way. So that would include everything. It would include giving your time, giving your skill, giving your mind, planning for things that you can do for other people. So everything that you can think of will come under khairat, which in Arabic means doing good deeds. However, as I said, the restricted meaning, when you use the word infaq means to spend in the cause of God. That would, of course, refer to the fact that you're spending money. Otherwise, that is just one thing that you need, that we're required to do. And I think that is the easiest thing. To spend money is perhaps the easiest thing. To be a person who has a charitable disposition or a charitable temperament, that is what is required.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Sumbul, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर साहब, ये जो अभी ये था ईविल आई वाला, ये उसके अंडर कवर नहीं होता सूरतुल फलक एंड सूरतुल नास में, क्योंकि उसमें हर चीज क्रिएटेड बाय अल्लाह ताला।
जी
तो
बिल्कुल होता है।
उसमें
तो आप, मैंने वही जैसे मैंने कहा था कि आप दुआ मांग सकते हैं, वो कुरान की दुआ भी है, वो नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की भी दुआ है। तो आप जब ये कहते हैं कि आउज़ु बिरब्बिल फलक मिन शर्रि मा खलक, हर उस चीज के शर से जो मुझे नुकसान पहुंचा रही है, तो आप ये अल्लाह ताला की पनाह में आ रहे होते हैं। तो अगर आपको इस तरह की चीज महसूस करें, तो जहाँ बहुत सारी नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की दुआएं हैं, वहाँ ये आपने ठीक तवज्जो दिलाई। कुरान मजीद की जो आयत है सूरह फलक की, ये बिल्कुल आपको एक अल्लाह की तरफ से एक पनाह है जो आप उससे रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं, एंड दिस इज द राइट थिंग टू डू, एंड थैंक यू फॉर पॉइंटिंग।
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. There's a question in the chat: while driving and listening to Quran, how to go about Ayat-e-Sajdah?
देखिए, आयत-ए-सजदा कोई, इट्स नॉट अ मैंडेटरी थिंग कि आपने आयत-ए-सजदा पढ़ी और आपने सर झुका दिया, या ये इसको पहले समझ लें ये चीज क्या है। सजदे पे हम लोग जरा हो जाते हैं सेंसिटिव, क्योंकि वो कुरान मजीद के जो मुसाहिफ है उस पर सजदा लिख दिया जाता है। वरना आप देखेंगे जो नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम जब कुरान पढ़ते थे, तो वो कुरान मजीद जो कुछ उनको कहता था ना, उसको वो रिस्पॉन्ड करते थे। कभी कोई ऐसी आयत आ जाती थी जिसमें तस्बीह का जिक्र होता था, तो आप रुक के सुभान अल्लाह कहते थे। कभी कोई ऐसी आयत आ जाती थी कि जहां पे क़यामत का जिक्र आता था, या अल्लाह ताला की वहदानियत का जिक्र आता था, तो आप कहते थे कि बला अना ज़ालिका मिन शाहिदीन, मैं इस बात का गवाह हूं। तो वो नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम का एक जिंदा ताल्लुक था कि इधर कुरान पढ़ा और कुरान ने आपसे कुछ कहा, तो आपने उसके जवाब में अपने दिल में, अपने जहन में बात कही। बिल्कुल ऐसे ही कुरान मजीद में बाज़ जगहों पे इसका जिक्र आया है कि आसमान और ज़मीन जो है वो अल्लाह ताला के आगे सजदा करते हैं, या सूरज जो है वो सजदा करते हैं, या कायनात जो है वो अल्लाह ताला के यहाँ सिरनगू है। तो जैसे ही वो ये आयतें पढ़ते थे, तो बेख्तियार उनके भी जहन में आता था कि अगर कायनात सजदा कर रही है तो मुझे भी करना चाहिए। तो ये नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम का रिस्पॉन्स था कुरान पढ़ने के। तो वो रिस्पॉन्स बिल्कुल एक जिसे कहते हैं ना कि स्पॉन्टेनियस रिस्पॉन्स है, कि आपने एक चीज पढ़ी और उसका आप पे असर हुआ। तो ये ऐसी चीज है, ना ये कोई फर्ज है, ना वाजिब है, ना कोई इस तरह की चीज है, ये महसूस करने की चीज है। जब आप इस चीज को महसूस करेंगे, तो ये ऑटोमेटिकली जहां पे आपके लिए सजदा पॉसिबल होगा और आप महसूस करेंगे कि हाँ ये मेरे ऊपर तारी हो गया, तो आप सजदा कर लेंगे। वरना इसको लोग एक फर्ज वाजिब की चीज बना देते हैं, ये इस तरह की चीज नहीं है।
So, इसका मतलब है कि कोई भी एवरेज इंसान, इफ यू रीडिंग द कुरान एंड इट्स जो उसके अल्फाज है बहुत औसम हो और ओवरवेलमिंग हो, तो इंसान खुद सजदा कर सकता है। जस्ट बिल्कुल,
देखिए सजदा एक चीज है, सजदा कर सकता है। इसके अलावा जैसे मैंने कहा, बहुत सारी आयतें हैं जिसमें शुक्र का पहलू होता है, तो आप उस आयत को रोक के शुक्र अदा कर सकते हैं। बहुत सारी आयतें हैं जो अल्लाह ताला की एक बहुत गैर मामूली खिलकत को बयान करता है, आप सुभान अल्लाह कह सकते हैं। तो ये नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम का रिस्पॉन्स हुआ करता था। व्हेनेवर ही वुड रीड द कुरान, ही वुड रिस्पॉन्ड टू इट। तो ये वन ऑफ द रिस्पॉन्सेज वाज दैट व्हेनेवर देयर वुड बी a sajda mentioned in certain verses, he would actually prostrate. So this is like having a relationship with the Quran.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleem. Now our last question, Sadia Said, please unmute your mic and ask your question. Thank you.
जी, अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर साहब। मेरा सवाल ये था कि अभी आपसे पहले पूछा गया कि जब आपके ऊपर आजमाइशें आती हैं और आप सब्र से, शुक्र से उससे गुजरें, मगर हम इंसान ही हैं, तो डज दैट मीन कि हम कुछ भी उफ ना करें, हम कोई कंप्लेन ना करें, हम क्रिब ना करें?
नहीं, ये मतलब नहीं है। इंसान से जो बहरहाल ऐसा हो ही जाता है, और इंसान जब ऐसा हो जाता है तो उसके बारे में वो फिर शर्मिंदा भी होता है और ये कहता है कि मेरे से गलती होगी। ये एक बिल्कुल नेचुरल सी बात है। असल चीज ये है कि अगर आपको इसका एहसास हो गया तो यू मेक अमेंड्स, लेकिन कोशिश करें कि पहले से अपने आप को अगर आप प्रिपेयर्ड रखेंगे। यू सी साइकोलॉजी में भी ऐसा होता है कि व्हेन यू suggest to yourself कि भी when something is going to happen, this is how I'm going to behave. तो अगर आपको पहले से ये अपने आप को पे तारी करें कि भी कभी मुश्किल वक्त आएगा तो मैं फिर भी अल्लाह ताला का एक शुक्रगुजार बंदा बन के रहूंगा या रहूंगी, तो वो फिर उस मौके पे भी आपसे कम इसका इम्कान है कि आप कंप्लेन करें. लेकिन अगर कभी हो भी जाए तो ये एक बड़ी इंसानी चीज है और इंसान उससे निकल भी आता है.
जी ठीक है, शुक्रिया बहुत बहुत.
थैंक यू डॉक्टर सलीम. आई हैव अ क्वेश्चन डॉक्टर सलीम. सो अभी आपसे जो नजर का सवाल किया गया था, तो जो नेगेटिव एनर्जीज एग्जिस्ट करती हैं, नजर तो लगती है लोगों को, वो तो हम हर जगह देखते हैं. सो हाउ डू वी एक्सप्लेन इट एज जस्ट समथिंग पैरासाइकोलॉजिकल? इज इट नॉट अ रियल थिंग व्हिच हैपेंस टू पीपल?
नहीं, देखिए, दिस इज बियॉन्ड द एम्बिट ऑफ माय स्पेशलाइजेशन. मैं इसमें कोई राय इसलिए नहीं दे सकता. मैंने जो थोड़ा बहुत पढ़ा है मैंने आपको बता दिया. जो पैरासाइकोलॉजिकल फिनोमेना हैं ये अभी भी दे आर नॉट फुली अवेयर ऑफ देयर रियलिटी. तो मजहब जो है वो तो जाहिर है आपको इस जगह पे में एक गाइडेंस दे सकता है जहां पे आपको कोई मॉरल गाइडेंस चाहिए, या जैसे यहाँ पे पॉइंट आउट किया गया कि अगर आप यू आर नॉट एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट्स गोइंग रॉन्ग विद यू या व्हाट्स गोइंग ऑन विद यू, तो आप अल्लाह ताला की पनाह में अपने आप को ले आते हैं. तो ये एक जनरल हम मजहब की गाइडेंस बता सकते हैं कि जब आपको महसूस हो तो आप अल्लाह की पनाह में आ जाएं. औज़ु बिल्लाह का मतलब क्या है? अल्लाह में आपकी पनाह में आता हूं. तो आप सिर्फ औज़ु बिल्लाह भी पढ़ लेते हैं तो इसका मतलब है कि अल्लाह में आपकी पनाह में आता हूं. तो दैट इज व्हाट आई कैन टेल यू. बाकी पैरासाइकोलॉजी के अंदर क्या है और कहां तक वो पहुंच गई है, आई वुड से कि दैट इज नॉट माय एक्सपर्टीज.
Okay, I have a last question, Dr. Saleem. Can I ask it? Someone.
जी, please go ahead. हाँ जी.
Taiwa Saeed, please unmute your mic and ask your question. Thank you.
डॉक्टर सलीम, आपने अभी एक सवाल का जवाब दिया था जिसमें उन्होंने पूछा था कि अल्लाह हमें उतना ही आजमाता है जितना हम बर्दाश्त कर सकते हैं, एंड यू सेड दिस वाज रिलेटेड टू रिलीजन. माय क्वेश्चन इज दैट मेनी अ टाइम्स हम रेफरेंस देते हैं जब हम खुद एक आजमाइश से गुजर रहे होते हैं, तो हम कहते हैं कि अल्लाह जितना हम बर्दाश्त कर सकते हैं उतना ही बोझ हम पे डालेगा. डज दैट ऑल्सो sort of relate to our conditions or situations, or is it just a religious point of view?
देखिए, कुरान मजीद में जहां पे जिक्र आया ना कि बोझ डालने का, वो तो शरीयत के हवाले से ज्यादातर आया कि अल्लाह ताला जो शरीयत आपको दे रहे हैं, जो मजहब आपको दे रहे हैं, दैट उस पर अमल करना इज नॉट बियॉन्ड योर कैपेसिटी. इट्स नॉट समथिंग एज डिफिकल्ट व्हिच द जूज हैड डन सो इन देयर ओन टाइम्स. ये उसका पस मंजर है. ये जो आप बात कर रही हैं कि आजमाइश जो है वो अल्लाह ताला उतनी ही आजमाइश डालते हैं जितना आप बर्दाश्त कर सकें, ये हम सबका इस्तेंबात है. इट्स लाइक इन्फ्लुएंस दैट वी हैव, समथिंग दैट वी हैव डिराइव्ड फ्रॉम द कुरान कि अल्लाह ताला की जो शफकत है, उसकी जो रहमत है, उसमें वो ऐसा नहीं करेंगे कि हमें अपनी बर्दाश्त से ज्यादा आजमाएं. तो ये एक इट्स लाइक एन इन्फ्लुएंस. लेकिन जहां पे ये जो जिक्र आता है कि अल्लाह ताला आजमाते नहीं है बियॉन्ड कैपेसिटी, तो वो इट्स नॉट human capacity that he's talking about. He's talking about the Sharia that he's giving us or has given us is not something which is extremely difficult for us to actually follow.
We're all out of time, and thank you everybody for being so patient and for answering all the questions, Dr. Saleem, and thank you for your wisdom, and inshallah we'll see everybody tomorrow. Khuda Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz.